Okay, hello and welcome. We're going to give it a few seconds for everyone to join. Fantastic to have so many people here interested in this session, wanting to hear from our participants. Let me just give everyone another bit to join. We have nearly 200 signups for this event, so it's fantastic engagement. And this is the latest in our episodes, our webinars, our series from Installer Fest, which obviously is all happening remotely, all happening virtually, all happening online today. And we have over 200 years experience actually around this virtual table, bringing to you today. We're going to be discussing the returning to work after COVID-19 with the Chartered Institute of Plumbing and Heating Engineering. And we're going to specifically be looking at, how do we protect yourself and your customers? How do you improve our risk assessments of jobs and the protective equipment that we need to use? Look at the implications of reopening buildings after a prolonged lockdown period that we've had, and really thinking about the future impact of things like the furlough scheme and the industry as a whole. Let me just do a quick bit of tech intro as people just get on board. We've got a Q&A and a chat feature, so please raise your questions there. We're going to start with, we'll do a few intros and Kevin's going to give a presentation, but we'd love to hear lots of your questions, so we'll save lots of time for that as part of this session. So raise them there and we'll flag them up. We'd love to get your input from a few questions that we have for you. So you should be able to see the first one here. So on your screens, if you can't, please click on the polling button. Has or will the impact of coronavirus have a significant effect on your own working practices? Fairly straightforward questions. Just give everyone another 10, 15 seconds or so to answer that, and I'll share some results. I'm sure you won't be absolutely shocked to find we've had 80% of people voted. Still the last few coming in, and 88% of people had a very significant impact. So obviously that kind of gets a kind of clear view there. We've also got, let me ask a second one just before we get going, which is about protective personal equipment. So what protective personal equipment will you be using when you go back to work? We've got gloves, face masks, visors, protective glasses. Should be able to select more than one if you're going to be thinking about that, or are you not so worried about the protective equipment? So let's give that another 10 seconds or so to come in. Great. 60% of people voted already, up to 80%. And the results are in, and it looks like, kind of last minute change, but gloves are perhaps the most popular, but gloves and the face mask, people are not too worried about visors, but certainly, 94% of people having some form of personal protective equipment when they go back to work. So that's perhaps interesting and something we'll perhaps build on as part of our conversation. So without further ado, let me hand over now to Kevin. Kevin is the CEO of the CIPHE. And Kevin, would you like to introduce yourself and the panelists and why we're here today and what we're going to talk about?
Thank you, Ben. And also many thanks to all of you for taking time out to join us for this webinar. It is an important event, and your feedback and the interaction is a really important part of this whole activity. So please do contribute as much as you can. As you know, today's discussion really focuses on COVID-19 and the implications of it. We'll no doubt touch on some of the issues that we've had in recent weeks and months, but also as we move forward to the future as well. But it would be remiss of me, on behalf of the rest of the panel, not to offer our condolences to all those people who've been affected by this global pandemic. It has taken the world by storm as such, and sadly, whilst there have been over 5 million people infected worldwide, there have been some 328,000 lives have been lost. So it really has been a massive issue, which has got long standing difficulties for us all to wrestle with in the future. We do, of course, commend all those who have worked tirelessly to support the safety, health and well-being of the public during this ongoing crisis. That includes key workers, which was a definition described by government from the outset, but also critical workers, as to who I would certainly include plumbing and heating professionals and the installers who are working at the coalface, particularly supporting the vulnerable. Now, without further ado, I would like to just introduce you to the participants today. We have Mike Conlon, who's the Vice President at Firmo Group, Paul Massey, Chairman of the Industrial Associates Development Group, and Richard Soper, CBE, who's Development Director of the CIPHE. They will all be contributing as much as possible during this whole process, and again, that they will do their utmost to answer the questions which you raised throughout the discussion. Now, if you could just move on to the next slide, please, Ben. The Institute has been supported for many years by manufacturers and merchants throughout the plumbing and heating industry. And whilst this slide has got a lot of information on which I'm inclined to apologise for, but it's just a reflection of all the manufacturers and merchants who do support the CIPHE throughout our normal working activities, which is essentially as an educational charity designed to promote all aspects of plumbing and heating engineering in the public interest. So again, we are supported by many manufacturers and also many members who are qualified globally as well to help us out with our endeavours. Next slide, Ben, please. Now, as I mentioned, we are all aware that COVID-19 has been a worldwide issue, which has got long implications for all of us. The response, I think, that industry has made towards this has been phenomenal. I think that by recognising installers in our industry as critical workers has certainly helped the overall way in which all of this has been dealt with. And in fairness to government, they did put a plea out to industry to help and support them. And I know that has been a very important role of the CIPHE in giving guidance to direct to government, but also through our work with the Construction Industry Council. And I'll probably come back to that in a moment. So again, our essential things here is our role as an educational charity is to support the public. And again, the work that our members do in support of that has been invaluable, particularly, as I mentioned earlier, the vulnerable as such. Now, one of the papers which I did actually produce at the behest of the Construction Industry Council is a document on mitigating the risk of building water systems. Now, the essential thing behind that is that as we start to come out of lockdown, then there will be properties which have been left unoccupied for many weeks, in some instances quite a number of months. And I've had particular concerns that within those properties there's water systems that have not been utilised for a long time. They will have stagnant water, and the last thing I want to do is scaremonger, but at the same time we need to recognise the risks of restarting and recommissioning a building again after it has been unoccupied for a long time. There are issues where taps have not been utilised, so we should just be very careful. Whoever's responsible for testing the taps and the systems and flushing through, then please don't forget that the need to consider appropriate PPE if and when required. The document itself is available on the Institute's website, and we'll also refer to one or two other documents later on in this discussion. So again, watch this space, but refer back to CIPHE throughout the course of the next few days. You'll see that there's a final message at the bottom here saying about a call to action. Whilst I'm delighted with the role, the support, the collaboration that the CIPHE has been involved with, and we've attracted significant support from other like-minded organisations, many of whom are involved with the Construction Industry Council, but there are other organisations outside of that who have also collaborated with the Institute to provide meaningful guidance to industry. The call to action that I would really encourage you to do is make the most of this opportunity of the higher profile that good plumbing and heating needs talk to your local MP, ask them to see what they are doing to help stop the incidence of cowboy installers, rogue traders as such, and other similar issues, because again, we still are going through a period where people are vulnerable. They will remain to continue to be vulnerable until we can really get out of the essential part of the coronavirus. So again, I think your help in supporting the work of the Institute is invaluable and would be much appreciated as well. So again, further guidance on how you can help, if that's of interest to you, please come back to the CIPHE in due course. Right, what I'd now like to do is open this up, this particular part of the discussion, to see if any of my colleagues have anything to say before we hand back to Ben with regards to the questions. But as I mentioned earlier, as much interaction from you would be really appreciated. Right, if I just hand over to Richard, is there anything you'd like to add, Richard?
Yeah, very much so. Thanks very much, Kevin and Ben. It's a great honour, by the way, to be here today and being able to have the opportunity to raise the awareness we have with regard to our industry and the major part we play. The important thing is that I dare say in the UK totally, there's approaching 250 operatives who are dealing in some form of plumbing or heating at any moment in time. And the consumer looks upon us and yourselves as individual companies of plumbing and heating businesses. They look upon you to get the confidence for the future through this very difficult situation. And as we all know, the new normal is upon us, and the new normal will be with us for a very long time. And as Kevin's rightly said, I think the part that I would like to bring to today is what we can do individually, not just from a point of view by raising awareness, but what we can actually do to talking and what we communicate to our customers, whether they be in a home or consumer, or whether it be a client through a commercial project. We all have a part to play, and the importance is we're a flotilla of professional bodies and industry associations, including media, and what we all need to be doing is rowing in the same direction. So those be my first initial comments, Kevin. You're on mute, Kevin.
Thank you, Richard. Mike, is there anything you would like to say at this stage?
Yeah, firstly, to echo Richard's words there, but also say it's a great pleasure to have the opportunity to join you and share views and gain great understanding. I think one of the I spend a lot of time outside the UK. Our business has a lot of activity over in Europe and in the US. But I think one of the things we found, particularly as we have a reasonably big operation in Italy, is I think the role of the installer and the professionalism of the installer is actually heightened in this. It's a side effect to a very serious issue, but I think certainly the public across Italy and Germany that I've experienced and discussion with colleagues, the public are far more selective now about who they want to trust entering their properties or working with them on the plumbing, heating, HVAC systems. So I think, if there is a benefit or a side benefit out of this, I think it's the professionalism of the industry is probably heightened, and the importance of installers as key workers and trustworthy certified key workers, I think is going to be at a new level, probably stay with us as we go through, as Richard said, this new normal.
Okay, many thanks for that. And Paul, over to you.
Thanks, Kevin. Again, based on time constraints, I just really want to support what Mike and Richard has said. But I do feel it's important that people recognise what CIPHE stand for as such. Really, we are a registered and professional body in terms of a charity. I've been in the industry for just in excess of 49 years, started life as an apprentice plumbing, heating and gas installer, carried out my city and guilds, and then moved into manufacturing and logistics as such, really. So got a lot of experience in this sector. And I'd also like to add, Kevin, that to everybody, that people like myself and Richard and Mike today are basically doing this in terms of supporting the industry. It's a non-paid, it's voluntary work that we carry out at CIPHE in our case. And really, I would encourage people that haven't learned enough about CIPHE to actually visit our manifesto and really understand in terms of what we represent. And we're representing the plumbing and heating installation trade, where you are our heroes as such in terms of our world, in terms of the plumbing and heating sector. From that aspect, you provide an excellent service, and I'm sure we will get on to the subject of road traders, but we are passionate, and I underline the word passionate, in terms of outlawing these type of practices as such. And also the same applies with non-CE mark product as well, which I'm sure we'll get onto these subjects, Kevin, but these are big subjects, and we need the support of our installing partners within this industry, where we've already got the support of our industrial associates, and these are leading brands, similar to Thermo Group, that are leading brands in the industry, that we're very proud to have Mike with us today as well. So that's over from me, Kevin, from my perspective.
Okay, many thanks for that, Paul. Right, Ben, can I just hand back to you, because I believe some questions have come in already. So would you like to field some of those, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So also do feel free to put questions in the chat, and we'll pick those up as well. But got some questions in already. So who's the CIPHE been working with in its production, you know, of the mitigation risk when reopening buildings, when all that documentation?
Right. I'll try to be as succinct as possible, but there is some background to this, in the sense that for quite some time now, I've been working very closely with insurance underwriters who have been very concerned about the escape of water issues, which have been quite prevalent year by year, which actually amount to or result in £1.8 billion worth of claims each year now. So it is quite excessive. The concerns also, whilst leaks during lockdown could be fairly severe if they've been not noticed for some time, are quite serious and critical. However, the other thing is that I then started to talk about the other indications of Legionnaire's disease and such things on buildings which had stagnant water in. So that was a start of this process. Then I had discussions with industry organisations, the water industry as well, because this is something which affects all of us across the whole aspects of the construction engineering sector. So again, we have gone out widely to consult. There were a number of public health engineers and chartered engineers that actually contributed to the article as well. So we've tried to make it as clear as possible without going into too much detail. But again, it was a joint effort by lots of people and organisations, and I'm most grateful to them for helping me turn around the document so rapidly.
All right. Thanks very much for that. Let's get another one here that we came in before was, do you recommend consultation with water companies, you know, when buildings are reopened or restarted?
Yeah, I think most definitely so. And again, this is something where everybody's going through a learning curve. I think the one thing with regards to the implications and maybe even the legacy of COVID-19 is that it is very much a game changer. I mentioned from the outset that there has been lots of collaboration, and I think if that's one of the positives that comes out of this horrific problem, then I think that will also help to make the plumbing world a far better place. Now, the water industry as such has been very much involved itself in trying to put forward guidance. Through Water UK, they issued a document about 7 to 10 days ago, also in support of the procedures that need to be taken when recommissioning a building that has been on lockdown. But they are also heavily involved with the all-party parliamentary water group. And again, they have been doing some wonderful things in raising awareness. So again, this is an issue that all aspects of the industry, the plumbing industry, the organisations, whether they be trade associations or professional bodies such as ours, as well as industry water companies, they can all have their part to play in this. So essentially, from an installer's point of view, liaise with your water company. They will be looking for notification, and particularly those who are water safe registered. Then that's a key thing, just to keep in touch with your local water regulations inspector and water company.
Okay, great, thanks. And let's perhaps open up to a couple of the panelists. I might go to Paul for the next question. Pop your glasses on there. Ready for it? So where do you see the gaps, if you like, between the current government advice and the realities of working as a plumbing or heating engineer? Clearly, this is a very difficult time. What are the challenges at the moment that you're seeing? What are the gaps?
I think firstly, Ben, we have to respect the fact that government have an overview on so many subjects in their remit, to which, with the likes of the plumbing and heating profession, and in particular CIPHE, where we've got this significant level of industry qualification and experience, government are not expected to know all of the key issues, etc., surrounding the plumbing and heating installation. So they're not as close to the coalface as professional organisations that are joining this seminar today in terms of the webinar. So I do believe that we have a role to play, and we do play that role at CIPHE. In particular, it's led by Kevin in terms of government involvement. Now that is either on a local government basis or at Westminster, where we do have the ear of government, and in particular on the technical side, that's led by one of our colleagues. We've got a very close working relationship with government. So I do believe that CIPHE, along with our leading industrial associates, manufacturers and merchants, have that 360-degree visibility to actually assist government in terms of proactively rolling out critical procedures as we move forward as an industry. We are the industry voice. We've got around about 7,000 members in total. Quite frankly, we need more, because the more membership we have, the bigger voice we have as an industry. And that is to support not only our plumbing and heating installation colleagues, but it's also the vulnerable, and we're all vulnerable, being consumers as well. So it's very much our crusade to actually deliver and support the requirements that government need, and that is information. And what we actually stand for at CIPHE is educational as well, along with health and safety. So hopefully that answers that question. We need to play a leading role in advising government what they should be communicating to the UK.
And can I just build a quick build on that one? Just Anthony James made an interesting point about the regional approaches, the different countries that make up the UK. Found any challenges due to the slightly different approaches that different regions appear to be taking?
Is that a question for me, Ben? Sorry.
Yeah, just to build on that.
So basically, the way that we operate is that our message includes the UK. And in addition to that, our message is inclusive of regions within the UK as well. And that is that we have a very, very clearly defined strategic plan of engagement at CIPHE. And that model we actually take to Scotland, Ireland, Wales, England, and local government bodies as well from that aspect. So it is a consistent message.
Okay, great.
Would you agree, Kevin? Kevin, would you agree with that?
Yep, absolutely. The key thing here is that whilst there was some confusion, I should say, when the reference was made to key workers, the fact that plumbing and heating installers were recognised as critical workers, that is the case across all nations. So yes, hence the reason we are happy to work closely with all concerned with this.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Let me just move on to another question and bring Mike into the conversation here. We've got large parts of the industry we know have been closed down for this period of time. We've probably seen sales fall as well. So what are we seeing in terms of stock levels at the moment? Have been challenges in the supply chain, or what are you seeing there, Mike?
Well, you're right. I think it's precedented. I mean, even if you go back to 2008, the decline wasn't quite as severe and as deep as this one. I mean, we went into this sharply and severely, and it caused a lot of, caused obviously a lot of issues. In terms of supply chain and manufacturing, we have, in the UK, we have manufacturing, 2 sites in the UK, but we manufacture in Europe. So from a Permo Group perspective, we have a high degree of our UK manufacturing furloughed, but supply continues. So we're continuing to manufacture both up in Gateshead and in Hull. We're bringing in product from our other sites across Europe. And there is a big diversity in terms of the impact of this. So, for example, in manufacturing sites and business in Central Europe, we've had very little impact. Markets have declined somewhere around about 5 to 15%. In the UK, we've seen a decline in the market of somewhere around 80%. So it varies, and it varies because of political reasons, which and the way different governments have applied the kind of safety aspect to this. But supply, because we went into this situation so severely, I don't think it's particularly disruptive. The major merchant groups generally hold pretty good stocks and are very professional in how they control their supply chain. From a manufacturing base, whether it's the UK manufacturing or warehousing, they are in certainly from a personal perspective, a very good position. And I think across the industry, as we come out of this, I think I don't envisage a huge supply issue from product. I see a bigger issue in terms of processes and accessing and safe working, whether it's in the RMI sector or in new construction. I think that's where the challenges lie. Okay, so no real problems kind of getting products out as we come out. But
I don't anticipate so, no.
Yeah, more process. Okay, interesting. Let's talk. Kevin raised a question which I think is linked to another one which I was going to direct towards Richard. We've had it, which is, the CIPHE proud to be a professional is the strapline, if you like. What can we do to highlight professionalism in the future? Coming back to that sort of rogue trader question, Kevin actually makes just more of a point of the need to promote like the license to practice they called with qualified plumbers in the Nightingale hospitals and things like that. Would you be able to give us your thoughts on that, Richard?
You're on mute.
There we go.
Sorry about that. Yeah, very much so. And I think it really comes back to some of the comments made also by Mike earlier as well, by the way, is that, our industry is built on individual plumbing and heating engineers. And I totally believe that the professionalism of our trade has to be pulled through. In other words, we've got a foundation of a quality of workmanship. And of course, the next thing, of course, is to strengthen the local community. And the importance of being the professional, both in plumbing and heating, is to provide those essential services, obviously, to homes and businesses. Remembering that big word, and it's called confidence. And I think in particularly as we come into this new normal, one of the big areas got to be is that the installer and plumber has got to be able to promote that to his client and customer, of whether it's an existing customer or a new customer. And remembering, and I know we're going to talk about maybe opening this a bit later on, is about the rogue installer or the rogue tradesperson. And I think it's really important, really, that as we go forward through essentially all the communications that we do as the installer or plumber in front of the customer, we step up a little bit. And one of the things which came across quite strong in the questioning at the very start is the issue with regard to PPE, which we'll maybe open a little bit later on. But the most important thing is, I think, is to step back and to do a risk assessment on every single business. It doesn't just lie with big companies, it lies with every business, including a sole trader. So what you'll be able to see on the CIPHE website is very important documents relating to risk assessment and not forgetting, and we call it staying in reality COVID-19 secure in 2010. It gives a very easy 5-point plan. And I want to really focus on this because what it does is it's what we have to do as installers and plumbers in communicating to the customer, because they're looking for that confidence. And that's from website to paperwork to action. That's from telephone to email. Then that's from demonstrating through to all people about your business that you're well prepared, not only from a workmanship point of view, but a process and procedure going into every consumer's home. I think we all know there's a lot of anxiety inside everybody's home at the moment. We've only got to watch the current debate on our children going back to school. So you can imagine bringing somebody into your home that you've got to trust, have confidence in. And that's therefore what I believe has got to happen is the installer, the plumber, the heating engineer needs to show to the customer what their basically their risk assessment is. They go through their process, they put it with their quotation, they demonstrate it verbally over the phone or through email to the customer to give them the confidence and importantly, not only being a professional as a workman, but also the professional in being giving risk assessment in this deadly disease that we're dealing with at the moment. So it's having faith in your own professionalism, it's promoting that, and I think the most important thing again, which was mentioned by Paul, it's a matter, and Kevin, it's a matter of working together as an industry, whether it's a professional body or one of the associations which are doing a great job in our country, that we work together for the professional plumbing and heating engineer to really make sure the consumer is confident and happy with the work that's going to be undertaken in their property. And to put a call out to Mike, I also believe all our IA should carry this kind of concept inside their marketing material, inside their literature and on their email. In other words, we promote heavily that please look for a qualified plumbing and heating engineer and make sure that you have a correct and proper way of going forward. Ask questions. Our job as professional people is to give that information to the consumer. So health and safety in mind at all times. Thanks very much, Ben.
No worries. Thanks, Richard. We've had a couple of points before, touching on the new systems in place and a question around, costs. So let me just launch another question for the audience here, which is, when we're going out there commissioning new systems, how confident are you about adhering to things like social distancing with customers? Is that something that you're confident about being able to do? And then I might ask the panel afterwards as well, what's their view on, how new working practices are perhaps likely to impact costs? As a question from David Thomas. So you have another few seconds for people to answer this. Are you comfortable with being able to implement social distancing safely or not? Or are you not sure yet? Okay, we've just had over half people vote. Give it another 10 seconds. And I will share the results, which are in. But most people, it looks like, are quite comfortable, but perhaps we should talk a bit about some of the cost implications. Would anyone like to take that?
Yes, can I just start briefly and then move on quickly? I think this is one of the very important facts, and comes back also from one of the initial questions, and it's to use a bit of a Shakespearean quote: PPE or not PPE, that is the question. The CIPHE has taken a very good stand here, and I emphasised earlier about checking on our website later and looking at our COVID overview, both from a risk assessment and in reality from the use of PPE at work. And I think if you go to the working, and I'm skipping forward to one part of it, which is the working practices, and I think it's well worth spending some time on this, because it's not the individual work, whether you go into a home and you're on your own and the consumer's vacated the room or rooms for you to work on, and you go through the complete clean and all the very hygienic things that we all know about. It's how do we work together? It's looking towards Mike. How do you hang a large double panel radiator? How do you move a bath into position into a very tight bathroom? How do you put a wall mounted boiler on the wall? Now, in government guidance, when working close to each other, such as the same room or space, The guidance is wherever possible, back to back, side to side, for a minimum period only. But in reality, you know, we have to pair. That's either with a colleague from a company or an apprentice. And it's absolutely essential that you go to what I mentioned earlier, the 5-point plan of safety working together. So in your risk assessment, which I hope you'll have a look at afterwards, is that something that you should all do so you can work that through yourself. And there's a 10-point plan of what you maybe look at you should carry in the company or on your van or wherever. The most important thing to remember is that wearing a face mask is not a legal requirement. Working within 2 meters of each other does not automatically mean a requirement to wear a face covering unless the type of activity requires it. This could be using dust masks, etc. However, if tasks involve closely working together, and I want to stress this, the CIPHE recommends the wearing of protective face coverings. The employer can implement this as a part of the condition of working. However, just remember, it is then up to the employer to provide that equipment, PPE, free of charge for their operative. Now I've covered, there's a lot of areas we could cover here, but because we're tight on time, I would like to pass on to other people for their views as well. Back to you, Ben, and maybe other panelists.
Okay, yeah, did anyone want to build on that, or should we take 1 or 2 more questions before we wrap up? Because we've got about 7 or 8 minutes left.
Yeah, I'm mindful of time. Let's try and take some of the questions, but having seen some of the comments coming in, they've been really good indeed. And one of the issues here, I think, the challenge for us is to try to follow up on some of these after this particular event. But various issues about competency are certainly coming to the fore, and particularly the fact that there are rogue installers without any qualifications out there. Maybe sometimes they're trying to do some good things, and there was reference to the sort of have-a-go heroes from one of our members in Scotland. It's a very valid point, but competency or lack of it is not necessarily just as a rogue trader who wants to charge as much money as possible. It can be just through blatant incompetency. So qualifications with the relevant experience is a benchmark that we've been promoting for many years.
I can just jump in on that, Ben, just to follow on from it. I think Richard makes a good point, which I will take back actually to the business in terms of the responsibility of brands. So our major brand in the UK is Mice and Radiators and Mice and Valves. And I think there's a responsibility for the brands to actually promote the partnering with certified, professional installers. And I think we can do that, through our digital media, social media, and, in printed media as well, to kind of promote that. And also through customer service, because we get an increasing amount of calls from consumers saying, who would you recommend, and approved installers. But I think there needs to be a uniformity or a certified approach to this. And I say, I do come back to one of my earlier comments. I think this is a side benefit to a pretty dismal situation that we find ourselves in, where I think the professionalism and the importance of certified professional installers is going to increase dramatically, because the whole aspect of letting somebody in your house who you trust is going to be paramount for a high degree of people. Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks guys. Thanks panelists. I want to give Kevin a bit of time to sort of say a few final comments. We absolutely will, if your questions haven't been answered, be able to follow up afterwards. This whole panel will also be recorded and will be shared out with you all. So thanks very much for joining. So let's hand over to Kevin for the last kind of few minutes, if that's okay.
Okay, well, many thanks again, Ben. In drawing this particular session to a close, I would like to remind you that the information that we've talked about is available on the Institute's website, and as indeed, along with government guidelines, it will be updated very regularly indeed. So the guidance we have, just to recap, would be information on mitigating the risk of building water systems, use of PPE and some recommendations for that as well. Risk assessments, because we've had so many inquiries from members in recent weeks about risk assessments, and again, I'd like to take this opportunity of thanking the engagement from members throughout the actual lockdown process, particularly, who have come to the Institute for guidance and support. The other thing which we have just completed, some support, is an animation with the organisation called BEMA, and that's dealing with safe working practices throughout the construction sector as well. So again, I did mention earlier about a call for action, and I would be most grateful if you could make contact with your MP and just shout about the need for competency, for competent people who are recognised, qualified to actually work on plumbing and heating systems, for members of Parliament to actually support that, because the last thing we want are further implications, especially on the vulnerable that we mentioned earlier. Anyway, I'd now just like to thank Ben for hosting today and for getting us through this actual webinar process, and of course to Joe Sharp and Mike Costain as installer for inviting us to talk about these really important topics. It's only through working together with industry and getting the feedback from installers that we can actually carry on with this support for the consumer, and importantly build up their confidence, because I've seen some feedback that during this lockdown process there are still members of the public who are very concerned about letting tradespeople, qualified tradespeople, into their homes. And again, that is a valid point, but again, this is something that we've had discussions with government in recent days as well, and I think that they will do as much as they can to safeguard or to change the perception of consumers, because clearly other work environments are getting back to normal. We just need to make the same thing for the rest of the domestic premises as such. The final thing I'd just like to say is, again, many thanks to all of you for your participation, for submitting your feedback and questions. And the essential thing is, as we move out of lockdown in various quarters, then please do keep safe. Many thanks.
Great, thanks very much. And we shared the link to some of that freely available guidance and advice on the website in the chat as well, but we'll also, I think, share that afterwards. And I can see still a couple more questions coming through, so we will take that away and get back to you, I think. But I'd just like to thank you, the panelists, thank Kevin, Richard, Mike and Paul. Thanks very much for your time here today, and for all of you that joined. I hope you found it valuable and useful, and hopefully see you on another one of these in the very near future. Okay, thanks very much then, guys.
Many thanks.
Bye for now.
Bye now.